What surfing really looks like, contest edition part 2. We have a women's heat this time. Caroline Marks versus Vahine Fierro. This is round 16, heat 2 of the Bonsoy Goldcoast Pro at Burleigh Heads. This time I have it from the start. And the other thing that is noteworthy here is that they're both goofy foot. So we can break down two different goofy foot approaches. Let's go. We obviously see waves up at the top, but that's not where they're surfing. And again, this is the part of contest that might be a little boring, might want to fast forward past this part, but there is an interesting takeaway here. They're just sitting there. The sun rises in the east. This is the east coast of Australia. There is no priority. So when you see over here, there's not a P that has been marked yet. That means that nobody has priority. Caroline is deeper. Vahine is on the shoulder. And they're just going to have to figure it out when a wave comes through. Some rocks there. I've been listening to the announcers. I've never surfed this spot myself. It's a right point break that they say is kind of like a beach break as well. There are rocks there behind them, but the main formation, the bathymetrical formation underneath them is sand. And sand is what makes all of these breaks in this area of Australia tick. When it lines up really well, when the sand piles up really well, then you get some incredible sandbars. But from my understanding, not all the breaks are good all of the time. So when one has sand, another doesn't have sand, etc. I could be wrong here. It's not my local spot, but that seems to be what the announcers are saying. Here comes something. See some lines approaching. And that just goes underneath them. Fun looking wave, but you could definitely see that they look perfect as they come in, but they're not all perfect. There's a bit of a wind swelly nature to it, the way that it looks. And they were saying the swell is a little bit more easterly. Definitely can see sets coming though, so let's see which one of them gets it. They're not jostling with each other too much right now. They're just sitting there patiently, and you can't imagine that like in a normal everyday free surfing context, people be frothing for these little ones coming through. This one looks a little bit bigger. Vahine saw her look down the line. Let's just stop that right there because that's interesting. That actually looked like it was a pretty good wave. Just want you to note this here is you can see her. I mean, I know it's a little bit blurry, but she's scanning the line of this wave. So she'd be sitting here looking all the way down and seeing if there's scoring opportunity down the line. Right here, for example, she's really looking and seeing whether this wave could have given her something worth taking. And this is something that I recommend for everyone, to be facing the ocean and looking at a wave and scanning all the way down to see if it's something that you want to get into. All right, so she decides not to go into that one, although it does look like it was maybe a pretty good wave. Looked fun enough to me, kind of nice and steep in here, but hard to see what happened. But now they're both going to be paddling out for the next one. And you can see Caroline is deeper here. Vahine's still on the shoulder, and it's going to be just, let's see who it's going to be. Caroline sits up and looks down the line, makes a move to go. Vahine keeping her honest. So Vahine is just making sure that Caroline goes here. That's a tactic in surf contests, basically. The wave's coming, Caroline is in position, but Vahine is going to at least make some attempt to go So that enforces Caroline to go. If Caroline decides that she doesn't want this wave, Vahine will back off. We can see that more clearly right at this moment here. And here goes Caroline. Deep bottom turn. And yeah, for my opinion, wasn't the best ride ever. Vahine on the next one. Up. She has a really smooth style. I've been super impressed with her surfing since she got on the tour, since I started noticing her. Dug a bit of a rail right there, but we will analyze the two different surfers. Vahine is from Tahiti. Caroline is from Florida. And Caroline is already a world champion. Paddling back out. And notice, this is important, per my last video, there is no difference in sex or gender when it comes to paddling or paddling form. The women all have the same form as the men. This is just the paddling form of an advanced or elite surfer. You have the quiet lower body, shoulders are up, knees are connected to the board here. Legs are actually slightly bent. You just can't see it because the board is so small that most of it is underwater, as you can tell. And the strokes are the strokes are even, about elbow deep, and she's catching a lot of water. Just no splashing. Very intentful, very intentional. And no rolling, no rocking. Again, quiet lower body. This is expert paddling form. This is how you paddle. Whether you're a man or a woman, does not make a difference. Okay, they're going to do the replay, so we might as well look at, this is this moment where they're both looking down the line. Look at that intention. They're both scanning this wave. And Caroline goes, as we know. Pumping. She actually has a smile on her face, which is pretty cool. She's eyeballing up the section, right? So she's really looking to see when she's going to lay that bottom turn down. She goes down to the bottom. Pushes. We can't see because of the wave in front. And pushes out through this turn, leaning on her front foot. And actually you can see the heel of her back foot is off as she's pushing through with her toes here. Coiled up. Coils, and then, her eyes are set again. So, always the key is the eyes. Caroline has a very interesting, unique style with what her back arm does. So she fully rotates the other arm in that direction. So she is actually completely over-rotated her upper body. But the key is, and this is where people get confused, she is able to follow through with her legs. So there's no use of counter-rotating the upper body if you can't also follow through with your legs. Yeah, just a little bash there. I think she gets a 5 for this wave, which would make sense. Vahine's making it back out to the lineup. And Caroline caught the first wave, so you can see now priority is set. Caroline has priority. Vahine is in second priority. And that means Caroline gets to go on whatever wave that she wants. This is interesting here. This is a really good tactic for when it's not your turn anymore, right? So this really translates into the everyday surfing context in the sense that Vahine is paddling slowly through the inside. I'm going to slow it down. See how slow she's paddling? Because it's Caroline's turn, she's going to kind of hang in here because, as we saw from the front on view, there are sick little inside waves in here, and under priority, you might be able to find a gem. In the free surfing context, this means like it's not, if you're frothing and it's not your turn, and nobody wants these waves in here, on your paddle back out, you just go as slow as possible and scan every line that comes in. You just scan all the lines just in case one of them is good, right? So this little wave pops up here. Caroline is way out the back, and if Vahine wanted this wave, she could have gotten it just because she's further inside. So she's not in a hurry to make it outside because it's not her turn when she gets out there. You know, she might just go out there and sit with Carolyn so that, you know, she keeps her honest on going on the waves and then also is outside for a set. But it's also an option when you don't have priority to go inside and pick off some little ones. There are the scores for those two rides, just a high 4, so a 5, and then Vahine just a 3 for her first wave. A lot of that comes from the fact that she fell on that last turn. And now, once again, they're just sitting. So even notice here in the positioning, we have Vahine way inside of Carolyn. All right, they're going to analyze Vahine's wave. Let's just look at her pop-up if we can. All right, just look at this. She's in right there. Hands are more like me and Idolo. Gets the whole hips off and is up in one movement. So once again, she is not planting her back foot first. That's basically not a thing. She has a much different style than Caroline. I'm not going to mince words. I prefer Vahine's style. It's more fluid to me. And just a completely different way of holding her upper body. The follow-through is relatively the same. I mean, most people's follow-through is pretty similar. But if we notice, that front arm doesn't quite over-rotate the way that Caroline's does. Her feet and her hands line up a lot more, and I think that gives a sense of fluidity. Not that Caroline doesn't rip. It's just that we get a greater sense of fluidity in Vahine's approach. Even when she falls, looks good. Again, there you see that big space. Vahine's way inside to take advantage of a smaller, potentially steeper wave. Sometimes the inside waves are better. And I'm just going to beat a dead horse here, but this is majority of what surfing looks like, right? This is what surfing really looks like. This is a contest, but surfing is a lot of just sitting there, waiting for the waves to come. We can fast forward this stuff. All right, back to the contest. Can get a little boring on the inside when you're not catching any waves. So Vahine moves up a bit. Again, that perfect paddling form. You just want to look at that and copy it. Longboard, shortboard, doesn't matter. Legs are not far apart. They're not all the way together. Nice and relaxed with that knee part mostly connected to the board. Looks like we have another little set coming through. And they don't, look at how not hyper they are about it. They're both very calm in their posture. So now Vahine has gone super deep. This is another move. If the person with priority wants the waves at the main peak, you can go find alternate places to take off. So she's deeper than Caroline now, meaning she's further to the right. This little wave pops up. Caroline looks and she says, I don't want it. Vahine goes deep and inside. Sets her line. Nice hit off the top. Just incredible flow. Not a lot of extraneous upper body movement in her surfing. And this was an excellent wave to get under priority. Ends with completion. Sinks that tail to get back up on her board. We get a duck dive here. Just a baby duck dive. Back to her perfect paddling form. Little bit of a kick there. That's all good. She's stoked. She's feeling it after that wave. Gonna punch through the back of that one. Here we have our replay. So we can put it in slow motion and break down Vahine's form here. She's silhouetted. She's looking down the line, though. You can see that she's looking. Let's look at her body posture. She's over her back foot a little bit more than Caroline. And look what I said about her hands and her feet are very lined up with one another. Down to the bottom of the wave here. She's eyeballing this section. The wave is cupping out. And then she just basically sits down with her butt, opens this front shoulder. This hand is in line with her back foot. She's going to push through, project the board up into the lip, and then push through with her back foot. That's where you get the rotation of the upper body. Yeah, got a little bit of fins out there. Got pretty vertical and comes down with ease. Notice how still her arms are as she goes into this next turn. Here is where, at this point, just watch this turn again. This is a bit of just a cutting back maneuver. Back to the power source. Back on her heels, up into the lip again. Now she has to maintain speed, gets on that higher line, bouncing a little bit just to get the board flowing, and then gets the board up on top of the lip for the ending floater. It's not going to be the world's highest score, but she definitely has, that was a better, more completed, more fluid ride than Caroline's 4.83. And she's staying busy. She's surfing. I think what you maybe notice already is that at this point, there's not the most radical difference between high-level women surfing and high-level men's surfing. Surfing has a lot to do with style and flow and placement. And it is the case that some of the larger men, like Jordy Smith, who's, what is he? They said his stats, 6'3", 193 pounds. I mean, that is just a lot more body and muscle to throw around. So arguably he can do some crazier things in terms of what he can do with all of his weight and torque. But again, Felipe Toledo, much smaller man than Jordy, has won a world title and Jordy hasn't. So, size is very interesting in surfing. I think that what we're coming to find, especially with the level of women rising so high, is that form and technique at the end of the day, regardless of what kind of body you were born into, is the most important thing in surfing. I don't know if this means that they'll do away with gender categories in competition. I really doubt that. But yeah, I think that there's a lot of reason to suggest that maybe there's not that big of a difference anymore between men and women surfing. All right, we're going to fast forward this interview. Although Caroline does get a wave, but maybe they'll show the replay. A little bit of a set there. All right, back to the contest. So Vahine got a 5.10 for that wave. Best wave of the heat so far. And again, just look at Caroline's form. I cannot stress this enough. Her paddling form is the same as Vahine's, is the same as Idolo's, it's the same as Mick Fannin's, so the same as mine, the same as everybody who surfs well. There is no specialness to paddling form. There's no uniqueness in paddling form. There's one paddling form. There's one good paddling form. That's the form you want to have, and that's the form you should adopt. And watch surf contests and adopt that paddling form. It's cool to see the lines of the waves bend in like this to get this view. This is the Gold Coast over here. And this is refraction. This is the way the wave is coming in and feeling the sandbar. and that it's going to break in the shallower water first. But you can see, because of this swell direction, that it's sending waves over here. It would be nicer if they were bigger right here, right? Then they'd break here. And some are coming from that direction, but others miss the bar, as you can see. This one has a bit of a different direction and a better one, and Vahine's going to go for it. Silhouette is hard to analyze the pop-up, but just note, just like every time we see she's entering into that top quarter of the wave, she's not freaking out at its steepness. It's helping her get in right here. Her hands are parallel and further back, like me and like Italo. Beautiful turn. Another one. Definitely the best wave we've seen so far. Fluid surfing, very little arm movement, abundant speed, and puts the cap on it. Her coach, her boyfriend, is stoked, and he's a Chicago Bulls fan. There's the perfect paddling, little mini duck dive. You don't have to do a big duck dive when you're duck diving whitewater, just that little knee one. Just got to get your body and your board under there, but let's look at it. The lower body is doing the duck dive. If her legs come off the tail, she's not getting that board under the water. This is very crucial for the intermediates. You know, they're on tiny boards, and it is easier to do this on tiny boards, but let's look at the setup here. Lower body over the tail. Nice, calm paddles. Wave is coming. She readies, so the hands are on. At the hands are on, she's going to also move those knees over the tail. Here you go. It's pushing down here. If this doesn't happen, the duck dive is not going to work. The board's going to fly out the other way if she doesn't have this pressure down over her knees. And at this point, the knees are pressing the board under. So the hands are holding the board under, and she's going to push down and follow through and get herself under that wave. Boom. That back foot comes up. And we're going to see her pop out the other side. Oh, they're going to replay her wave, so we're not going to see that. Oh, this view is really good. We can see here that, again, she's getting her whole hips cleared. I know it's blurry, and I'm sorry for that, but the whole hips are cleared. There is no cobra here. Once again, I'm going to beat that dead horse until it's extra dead. No cobra. You got to get the whole lower body cleared off, and there's that thing I said that her hands are parallel. That is a preference. Finding that flow, that back foot over the tail, goes down to the bottom, leans into it, looks where she's going. It looks even better from this drone angle. Just waiting, the patience in her surfing is very admirable. The legs are doing the majority of the work for Vahine, and that is why her surfing looks so good. Here, she's just making sure she has enough speed. She's not going to try to do a turn without proper speed. Bangs the door shut on that one, and that is a completed ride. Looks like Caroline got one at some point. Pretty good wave for her, too. And, yeah, she rips. Nice vertical hit right there. And we see the scores here. So Vahine's is a little higher, but Caroline got a good score. And now back to the waiting game. At this point now, Caroline has priority and she's in second place, and she needs this 5.77, right? So it's the top two scores. The highest you can get is 20 points. And Vahine is just, they're going to do a slow-mo on this so we can analyze her form a little bit more. But my big takeaway from Vahine's surfing is that there are no extra bells and whistles. It's just very simple and very solid, and it works. And I really don't like that commercial. That's cool. We get to fast forward all the commercials. And watch them sitting again. Sitting. Waiting, but a little bit more active, I'd say, than the bells. You know, they're getting a lot more opportunities. Waves are fairly pumping for this event. Great forecast. At the time of this recording, it's they're all asleep in Australia, and it's probably going to be finals day this evening. Caroline just repositioning herself, and now there's 8 minutes to go. She has a 5.77, and basically the wave has to look like it's going to give her that score. If it looks like for her, if she judges she's surfed a lot of heat, she surfed a lot of waves, she can kind of know what she's looking at when she sees the wall of a wave. If it's what she's looking for is something that's going to be steep enough and stay open enough for her to unload some powerful turns. But if that wave doesn't come through, she might have to get desperate and look for an inside wave. At this point, though, she's just going to pick her bathing suit out of her bottom. And I have heard that when you wear bathing suits, that is a big thing that you end up doing a lot. If anybody wants to comment about that, let us know. There might be other upshots for wearing the bathing suit. I'm not sure, necessarily what those are, but weigh in the comments if you want to. Water's pretty warm here. It looks like what Caroline is wearing is a long sleeve. It's technically a woman's long sleeve spring suit. We're watching the Vahine wave, a different Vahine wave. So it looks like she caught some inside wave during those ad breaks. They really need to time the ad breaks better. Fell again. Does not take away from the fact that her surfing is very silky smooth, very easy on the eye, and super powerful because she's relying on placement and technique. Caroline's style is very powerful, and it's definitely more unique. Vahine's is that style that most of us really love to watch. But you could see they both have, like the solid fundamentals. Here is a main difference, though. We can see Caroline's back arm here. It works as this kind of like rudder or swing weight for her, where, like I told you, Vahine keeps her back arm and her arms in general just a lot kind of closer and hemmed in and over her feet. So at this point in the bottom turn, look at Caroline's arm is here and Vahine's is already over that back foot. And Caroline's is still up in the air where Vahine's is further back down. Also, her front arm is a little closer to her front foot where Caroline is already about to start that swing. And now at this point, they look roughly similar. Vahine is more on that back foot, though. She's using her butt a little bit more than Caroline. Caroline's already now brought this arm around, over-rotating the upper body. Vahine has started rotating with the front arm. And now, at this point, Vahine opens up. She has that big, open, squared off to the lip. Caroline's already into her rotation here, so this is a bit different. Much more power. I mean, this is a wave difference thing, too. Look at Vahine's spray. Much more power in that turn. She timed it, placed it better. And she's pushing through with her back leg a lot more. Caroline's already into her next bottom turn. And this is something I did notice when I was watching a few of the different surfers. There were surfers who really attempt to find the flow before they go into the next turn, and other surfers that were kind of forcing turns or forcing aggressivity. And the ones I think that find the flow performing a little better at this wave. So Caroline's already into her next turn, where Vahine is waiting for the wave to stand up again. Great turn from Caroline, but smaller spray. Vahine's was smaller too. Just, they're both in this fatter section of the wave. Caroline's already into her next bottom turn. And, just kind of catching a little bit for Caroline. Vahine's just standing tall. I mean, nice little whip there for Caroline. There's nothing wrong with her surfing. It's just I'm being a bit critical because, look, Vahine is still just flowing through. I think she's not going to make this next turn, or maybe this was her really good wave. Oh, yeah, this is her last turn, where Caroline is still cramming turns in there, so they're comparing their high rides is what they're doing. But Vahine hasn't even done a turn. The wave didn't offer anything right there, and she's just waiting for it to stand up enough so she can put it to bed here. And once she does, look how dynamic that is. Fins out the back, no extraneous movement. And I want to stress, I don't want to take away from Caroline's surfing and how excellent it is, but Vahine's is a little bit better. Now there's 5 minutes to go, 6 minutes to go. See that score line. Vahine's in second priority. And so she's going to sniff around on the inside. See that little move there? Just sniffing for this little wave that came through. Once again, in a recreational setting, when you notice it's not your turn, then just like as in the contest setting, you're looking for waves that the people for whom it is the turn don't want. They're not even looking at. They don't even care about them. So if you're extra frothing and you need to catch waves, those are the ones that when it's no longer your turn, you need to go for. And sometimes if you're too busy, that pisses people off. But I would have to say if they don't want those waves anyway, it's okay. If you're not taking waves that people don't want, and people are just mad that you are riding a lot of waves, that's kind of, I think, their problem. It's very different if you're paddling around people and taking waves that people do want, right? So then you're actually violating that ideal law of priority in turn taking. And so you want to limit that if possible, if you can. That's a self-control thing. That's getting straight with your desire. They both made some moves for this one, so a little bit of jockeying there, and then that wave just does not look that good. Tide looks a little higher at this break for this heat. They're surfing closer to those rocks. 4 minutes to go, and Caroline would really want a nice wave to come through for her right now. All right, we don't need to see this bicycle. Don't see many sets out the back. This is kind of in the recreational setting. Oh, maybe a little something popped up a little bit closer, right? But nothing that we could see. That's kind of wind swelly, when the wave pops up all of a sudden right in front of you instead of seeing it coming from far, far away. But Caroline is in that situation in the recreational setting where you have to go to work, you have to pick up your kids, and you just need one more good wave just to feel good about your day and go in. So I would say that when you want to win the heat and you're behind with only 3 minutes to go, the way that plays out in the recreational setting is that that's always that last wave syndrome. I just need one more. And right when you only need one more, and preferably a good one, right? Because it's good to go in a good one. And for them, if they get a good one towards the end, they're gonna, go keep surfing in the contest. It never comes. Or it does sometimes, and that feels really good when it does, but there's always that bit of extra anxiety. All right, here she's moving, right? So she has priority. Vahine is going to go deeper to make sure Caroline goes. She's going to keep her honest on it. See this? Vahine made sure Caroline went. And you can see here what I mean. She's just forcing turns. She rips, but that was not a 5.77. Just forcing it a little bit too much. They might give us a replay here. And we get a duck dive. Let's get a duck dive. No. She paddled over that one. Don't duck dive if you don't have to duck dive. She's putting the boosters on. Remember, the paddling before was a little more casual. Now she only has, a minute and 40 seconds, and there is absolutely no way she got the score. So let's check this out. That turn was really what I would call sticky. She's up. She has a little bit of skewed hands when she stands up and just goes straight into a bottom turn rather than getting flow, and then doesn't really get above the lip, just is forcing turns to try to get a score. And you can kind of tell nowadays when people are forcing, it also doesn't get above the lip, didn't get really any spray on that one, and is actually losing speed. If I were to coach her on a different approach to this wave, I wouldn't have done those first two turns. I would have, sped up down the line and tried to do something huge on that end section where the speed and the power, she might have been able to get more, we'll just back up again. She might have been able to get more points by right here instead of going for this turn. If she would just speed up down the line and get as much speed as possible and then do an enormous move, it would have probably gotten more points than trying to cram these turns in, because they're not very good. That's like, now at this point she has a 2. Then she has like a 2.7. And now she has maybe like a 3.5. But she could have got a 6 if she was going fast and did something super dynamic. Here's a different view. And that might be the best turn you ever do if you're any kind of recreational male or female surfer. And that's what I also would like to say about women's surfing. It's also the case that these pro women, they're better than, 95% of the average male surfer at like any given regular old surf break, but especially in America. But they are elite surfers. So their bad waves are the best waves of most average surfers' lives. So this wave that's going to end up being like, at best a mid 4, a lot of people will be super stoked. She's like eyeballing this section. She sees the lip here and she's going to put her board up on it and pull it, right? But remember I was talking about what if she went really fast and had more speed to do something. Look at how steep this section is. So that's just a good reminder to everybody else as well. Like maybe a big takeaway from Carolyn's last ride is that, remember this too, even some of the best pro surfers force turns when they ought to be pumping to get speed to do something bigger on the end section. Now let's just analyze this end turn and see what she does. Her board is already going up while the lip is throwing out, so that's good. Looks like, there's a sense in which, because she was going so slow, she is actually a little late to this turn. If she was already up in this lip, she could be doing like a sliding maneuver on that lip right there. Vertical. But again, if she was a little sooner with a little more speed, she could already be on this coping section doing like a more radical sliding turn, which she is definitely capable of. Instead, it's a vertical hit, gets a little hung up here, and pulls it. And again, you'd be stoked, right? A lot of people would be stoked if they did that, but she needs to win a heat. She's an elite surfer, and that's not the score. Waiting for scores. 1 minute left. And she's not in a hurry to get out now. She doesn't have priority, so she's going to look at an inside wave. She's desperate, and I think she has a sense that was not the score. It must have been just lower. No, here you go. Look at me. Nailed it. 4.27. I said mid 4 at best. Should I be a judge of WSL? I don't really want to be. I would be very good at it, but yeah. So Vahine is going to win this heat. Hands down, she has priority. She has the lead, and she surfed better. I think this heat is clear that she categorically surfed these waves better on her backhand than Caroline did. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this. We'll try to do another one of these, and yeah, just big takeaway. I mean, they are women, they are ripping, and I just don't think there's that much of a difference anymore in the entertainment value, the quality of surfing, speed, style, flow, radicalness from between women and men at this point in surfing history. So if you're a surfing fan, watch the women, watch the men, and it's just going to get better from here, I think, for the women. I mean, the young women are surfing just incredibly well. Vahine's super young. She might only be 20. She's a rookie on tour, and love that style and flow with the radicalness. All right, guys. Until next time, like and subscribe to everything. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.